humans with animal characteristics. Spiegelman had long planned to adapt his father's true story of being a Holocaust survivor, which he had passed on to his son since he was little, but he couldn't find a way to do it. Finally, with the Anamorphic Mandate by Zygov, it dawned on him how to do it: make the Jews mice and the Nazis cats. From this 3-page story, Spiegelman began crafting a larger work in 1978, trying to get his father to open up more as possible, though he was busy with other projects in the 1970s, specifically his comics magazine Arcade, which he co-founded in 1975 with Bill Griffin. It will feature numerous Jewish stories and creators, notably Diane Newman, whose Babette Yakovich strips lampooned gossipy yentas, gossipy women, in suburban Long Island. The magazine would later fail after a year, and Spiegelman would move into Raw, where he released the first chapter of Mouse in Raw number 2 in 1980. This continues for the first 6 chapters into Raw number 6 in 1985. Eventually, Spiegelman released the first half of the collection in 1986, which will be collected by Pantheon, due to the coming release of An American Tale, a film about anamorphic mice and cats, this time with the mice being Russian immigrants. Fearing people thought he was copying it, Spiegelman actually thought that Spiegelman was copying him. It would eventually be completed in 1992, with the full book receiving the Pulitzer Prize, a first for comic books. To date, Mouse is considered one of the greatest comic books ever made, standing next to The Watchmen and The Dark Knights as the books that reset the comic books for the adults in the 80s. It also inspired other Jewish comic books like The Jew of New York in 1998, about an attempt in 1825 to make a Jewish homeland in upstate New York, The Golem's Mighty Swing in 2001, about a Jewish baseball team in the 1920s, and We Are on Our Own in 2006, as seminar on the Holocaust. Another Jewish creator who would become a superstar in the underground comics scene was Harvey Pekar, who made a name for himself as a writer adapting his real life into stories, including being a Jewish man living in Middle America, specifically Cleveland, Ohio. One story with artist Drew Friedman was Rabbi's Wife in 1988, in which he tops a Viennese Jewish doctor. And Pompeo Pego, with Robert Crumb, he tells the story of a 1920s Jewish rag peddler that provides insight for the life of Jewish immigrants at the time. Later, Pekar even addressed Superman's Jewish roots with What Superman Means to Me with Gary Dunn, where he criticized his Jewish origin and how superheroes had crowded out others in the comic book field. During this time, comics also attracted one of the medium's great artists, Will Eisner, who not only began working with the premier comics publisher, Kitchen Sink Press, but also began creating his own most personal work to date. In 1978, he released A Contract with God, his landmark graphic novel, whose title about Frem Hurst, a pious Hasidic Jew who carries around a stone tablet, which he claims is his contract with God, thus ensuring a good life as long as he did good deeds. However, when his adopted daughter Rachel dies suddenly from disease, he claims God broke his contract, thus he sets out on a life of material. Later, Frem has a change of heart and sets out to make a new contract, only to die of a heart attack. The story asks the classic question, why does God let good things happen to bad people? This is a question at the heart of many, especially the Jews, after experiencing the events of the Holocaust. It wasn't the only story in the graphic novel that dealt with Jewish themes, though, as The Street Singer was about an Italian opera singer, Marta Maria, who was later revealed to be, in fact, Jewish, her real name being Sylvia Spiegel. And The Super, the subject is a racist superintendent of 55 Dropsy Avenue, the setting of many of Eisner's later works. Skuggs, who is clearly shown to be a Nazi sympathizer. However, it would be the later classic by Eisner, To the Heart of the Storm, in 1990, that truly dealt with anti-Semitism, and would be Eisner's most autobiographical work to date, as it told the story of him growing up in anti-Semitic New York during a flashback of his train ride to boot camp. At DC, Colossal Boy and the Legion of Superheroes were retroactively made Jewish by Paul Levis in the DC Special Series number 21 in 1979, where he celebrates Hanukkah. An interesting consequence is that his mother, who is the president of the Earth in the future, is also Jewish, thus making her the first Jewish president. Another Legion member who was revealed to be Jewish in issue number 308 was Gam Allen, who introduces his alien wife Yor to his parents. The meeting goes well, though they do ask him if they plan to raise their kids Jewish. Apparently, according to Yivitz, interface relationships will still be an issue thousands of years in the future. Also, in 1979, World War III Illustrated was introduced by Peter Ruper and Seth Tobukman. A self-published magazine that sought to use comic books to highlight social issues and frequently cited Jewish influences. In issue number 18 in 1993, Eric Droker did a story comparing the past Jewish struggles with present-day struggles of blacks, coming off the heels of the Crown Heights riots in August 1991, which was sparked when a 17-year-old Guyanese boy was accidentally run over by a Jewish man, accelerating the already tense relations between the Jewish and black communities. Drucker was showing in the strip that the Jewish people face many of the same struggles that blacks do today, showing that they have more in common than they believe. In issue number 33 of 2002, Lord of Two People, it examined the Israeli-Palestine conflict by Seth Tobachman, relating his experience teaching art in Ramallah, a city in the West Bank, in the spring of 2002 to Palestinian children, noticing how similar they were to Israelis. Tobachman took no sides in the conflict, only asking when they could stop killing each other. He later collected this story in the Portraits of Palestinians and Israelis for My Parents, published by Soft Skull Press in 2003. In 1993, American Flag debuted by Howard Chaykin, a futuristic story that took place on Mars in 2031. What was significant about the story was the lead character, Reuben Flagg, who was Jewish. It would be the second comic book series after Harvey Peacock's American Splendor to star a Jewish character. Most significantly, Flagg was a non-stereotypical Jewish man, and in fact many readers wouldn't know it until someone actually mentioned it. For instance, in issue number 2, he is approached by a woman at his friend's wedding where she first asked, "Are you really Jewish?" quickly followed like, "Would you like to come to me to the ladies' room?" which Flagg says yes to both. In issue number 50, 1998, Reuben Flagg is made president. And he's even asked, how does it feel to be the first Jewish president? For instance, he could only answer nervously. For Chaykin, Reuben Flagg was not the stereotypical Jewish character that was known in movies up to that time, but a James Bond type that could easily have his way with the ladies and even become president. He was essentially saying, "I'm Jewish and I'm proud." Meanwhile, at Marvel, another character was made Jewish with Doc Samson, the Incredible Hulk's and Bruce Banner's friend and psychologist in the story Revisionist History for the Marvel Holiday Special of 1993 by Peter David. In the story, Samson retells the tale of Hanukkah to kids, but with Marvel characters like the Hulk and Wolverine put in place. Samson being made Jewish does work, since his very name is from the Old Testament Jewish hero. In 2003, Will Eisner would further explore Jewish history, first with Fagin the Jew, and then The Plot, in 2005. The first book examined the history of the famous character in Charles Dickens' classic Oliver Twist, while the second explored the history of the Protocols of Zion. While Fagin the Jew was in many ways Eisner's response to his racist depictions of blacks with ebony white, the Protocols was a scholarly examination of why some still believe Jews are conspiring to take over the world. Another famous Jewish creator, Joe Kubert, also explored Jewish history with his comic books in Yossel, April 19, 1943, released in 2003. In the book, the title character dreams of becoming a cartoonist until he is interrupted by World War II and the Holocaust. To survive, he uses his cartooning ability to amuse his Nazi captors. Judd Winnick would tell an overarching family story in Caper, a 12-issue miniseries with 3 stories interlocking Jewish crime in Hollywood. Winnick used the stories to emphasize how Jewish people influenced both the mob and the movies, though he did take liberties with the first mobster story, Market Street, as there was never organized crime in San Francisco, where it took place. The second story, Hollywood Treatment, was very much based on real history, as Winnick points out how Jewish people helped found the film industry in Los Angeles. Like with the comic book industry, as they are forced out of all other businesses due to anti-Semitism, thus they had to create their own. In the Justice League Unlimited comic, based on the animated series on February of 2006, Supergirl ends up kissing Atom Smasher under the mistletoe during Christmas. Smasher enjoys the compliment, but points out to Supergirl that he's Jewish after all. His character would later talk about missing his father during Hanukkah, and later in the story Smashing Through the Snow by Adam Beecham, he wears his Jewish identity on his sleeve, simply stating it's who he is. Image Comics would also get into the Jewish character game with Go Girl in 2000 by Triana Robbins and Anna Timmons, about Lindsay Goldman, who becomes a superhero after her mother passes on the legacy to her, even though she's still in high school. Previously, Trina Robbins teamed with Sharon Kalman-Rodol for the Agnot Kinmol, a comic book adapted from the Partisan song in 1985. While not to the classic Archie young adult comics, Go Girl, the Goldmans were very clearly Jewish, but not in an overt way. Her intention was that, like other Jewish characters, it was just part of her identity. Thus, when you don't make it a big deal about it, you have true equality. Of course, one of the most significant comics of Jewish influence would be The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, who frequently cited Jewish folklore for his stories and other works. Lines like the land of Nod came straight from the Bible, while in issue number 8 he introduces Morpheus' sister, Death, who is based on the Kabbalistic notion of Death being a female and someone you want to meet. In the issue, she comes for an old man who is allowed to say the Shema before dying. Death would later get her own miniseries by Gaiman, and in Sandman number 29, 3 Septembers and a January, Death confronts a giant man, Joshua, with the tale of the 36 Tadakan, 36 saints, who hold the world together. Reassuring he's a good man, even better than kings and emperors she has met, Joshua is able to pass on in peace. And that is a brief, rambling history of the Jewish people's influence in comic books. Hopefully it emphasizes how much they contribute to this great medium. If nothing else, if by the very off chance you see someone dressed as the Thing or Ben Grimm during the holidays, be sure to wish them Happy Hanukkah over Merry Christmas, because they are proud peoples of the book. My chief end source for this episode was From Krakow to Krypton by Ari Kaplan, a fantastic history of comic books that also explores the influence of Jewish in the comic books and medium. A great read if you're interested in this history of books, but also how much the Jews influenced them, and frankly does a better job than I did with this episode, I think. Check it out wherever books are sold. Also, please forgive any mispronunciations I have made in this episode and also previous ones. But do keep in mind, I am a comic book fan, and we've been mispronouncing Magneto's name for years. Thank you, and go out and enjoy another good comic book. And now it is September 13th to 2018, time for some reviews. First up, of course, is favorite comic book of the week, Fantastic Four #2 by Dan Slott and Sarah Pichelli, which finds out what the Reed Richards, his wife Sue, and children Franklin and Valerie, along with the rest of the Future Foundation, have been up to all this time. Great issue that sees the family bouncing between universes while also dealing with some fun little family drama. For instance, Val apparently now has a crush, and the fact that Sue recognizes who that crush reminds her of before her husband Reed does is classic. Spichelli's art is equally fantastic. Honestly gives a great look at all the different universes they bounce around in. And all that, plus a great cliffhanger that ties the two issues together, looks to be, well, quite frankly, a very fantastic revival of the Fantastic Four. Can't wait to the next issue. Also, I recently picked up the Hellboy animated Blu-ray set, which features both movies by Tad Stones and Mike Mignola. The Storm of Swords and Blood and Iron. Both are very good films that do a great job adapting the comic book in the animated world. It also features the original live-action voice cast of Ron Perlman as Hellboy, Selma Blair as Liz Sherman, and Doug Jones as Abe Sapien. Even John Hurt shows up in Blood and Iron as Professor Broom. Great watch. The only downside is that Tad Stone's cartoony art doesn't quite fit the subject matter. This is, after all, Hellboy is fairly dark material with more than a few discs chucked in. But still, very much worth the watch. And to be honest with you, despite all that, I actually enjoy these better than the live-action films. And finally, Netflix released the Iron Fist Season 2 last week. I got a chance to binge it, and have to say, while a little disappointing, it was an improvement on the second season. The cast all does much better their jobs, especially the actor portraying Danny Rand, and we do much better action scenes too. And out of 10 episodes instead of the 13th that Netflix has forced them on, it's a much better condensed storytelling. However, it's still a bit too long and drags a bit in the middle, but it has a fantastic ending along with a cliffhanger that any Iron Fist fan goes, when's season 3 coming out? Overall, if you watched the first season and kind of liked it, you'll definitely like this, and if you have Netflix, definitely check it out. Well, that's it for this episode. Join me again next week when we begin a 2-part episode on the history of black characters in comic books. And I'm going from one touchy subject to the next, but it's good to talk about this, because that's what history is all about. Till then, go out and enjoy yourself a good comic book.